You know, when I was ranking member of the subcommittee 2 Congresses ago, we held hearings and talked about, you know, what's the coordination between DHS? DHS is a primary mission to defend, and are they talking to the DOD or NSA that has the offensive capability, and yet the one charged with defensive wasn't coordinating as well? I will say I think DHS has come a long ways since those hearings, and that's very good news. And I noticed, Phil, in your testimony, you stated you talked about an MOU that has been signed between DHS and the DOD, and I was very glad to see that. Can you explain how that's working, and then also, do you anticipate doing something similar with the NSA?
Absolutely, sir. So I talked a little bit about that before. We signed at the secretarial level an MOA, a Memorandum of Agreement. Sorry, I fall back into acronyms too much. Between the Departments of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. There are 2 points of contact on that. One is me, and the other is Dr. Jim Miller, who's the Principal Undersecretary of Defense for Policy at DOD. And under that agreement, DHS, so that we can stay fully synced with our partners in the Department of Defense, has and is deploying a team of people to Fort Meade that will be led by a DHS senior, who is currently Rear Admiral Mike Brown, who's been in the Department of Homeland Security on detail from DOD for a number of years. And he will have a team of people that will comprise, first, a joint coordination element to do joint planning with DOD, make sure we can stay operationally synced, a group of people who are going to work with NSA on its technology, and another group of people who will be embedded in the NTOC at NSA so that we have full assay of the NSA's knowledge of the threat. NSA and Cyber Command are both deploying teams of people to our cyber operations centers to support our domestic cyber operations. So there'll be a cryptologic support group from NSA and a cyber support element. I'm more comfortable with CSG and CSE, but those are what they're called, from Cyber Command, that will directly support us. We are, in the initial stages of developing those capabilities, but it is already working very well. I would also say that those are not the only means that we have to coordinate. So we literally hold a weekly SVTC, a secure video teleconference, with our partners in DOD to make sure we're staying coordinated. We work with them at DEPI's committee meetings and lots of other administrative policy and other processes. So we have come a long way between these 2 departments in our ability to support each other in our respective mission spaces.
Well, and that's certainly good news, and I want to commend you for that. And that's, again, from 2 Congresses ago, that's great progress, and very glad to hear that. I think they have the assets, the expertise, capability, so it makes no sense for them not to work with you and share that. Private sector sharing threat information is always difficult for private sector to share that with the federal government. There's the incentives are still lacking, I think, to some extent. They have a duty to their shareholders. They don't want to report this kind of stuff. How do you incentivize them to do that? And would an exception to the FOIA be helpful in terms of that not being that information, threat information, not being subjected to a FOIA request?
Well, with regard to at least some information submitted under the Protected Critical Information Infrastructure Program, the PCII program, there is a FOIA exception. The issue, I think, is a little broader, and that is, there remains a lack of clarity about the costs and risks of sharing information from the private sector to the government. And so, sometimes one has the problem that when the private sector and government want to talk, I think generally, if something is happening, the private sector will lean forward to figure out a way to share information, as will the government. Because when you get operators talking with operators, they've got a problem to solve. If it's more ongoing, the problem is nowadays, if you get together and you want to work together, you want to share information, not just to share information but to solve a particular problem, sometimes the first thing you have to do is call the lawyers into the room. And you and I, sir, we're both lawyers. We love lawyers, but it's better if you don't have to have them.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but yeah.
So we need to find, and we have some internal processes going now to try and generate some clarity with the private sector about what the rules are so that you can have a more rapid and effective conversation.
And last, if I can indulge the chair, the national policy for cyberspace, and it was mentioned earlier, sir, Yeah, the last one was developed in 2003. I think one of the recommendations we had with the commission was to develop a national policy. That is within the jurisdiction and authority of the White House. Can you demonstrate why that is so important and so critical?
Well, I think having a national policy is critical. I would personally favor, while I think we new ways to do things, focusing very heavily on implementation. We in DHS are working right now on the strategy which will underlie the cybersecurity part of the quadrennial Homeland Security review that the ranking member brought up. So for us, this is Mission 4, or cybersecurity across the Homeland Security enterprise. And we are working now across government and with the private sector to develop that strategy that will roll up to the broader national strategy.
Yeah, thank you so much.